Hi supervisors, this is Ms. Stapp, and I'm going to go into a little more depth in this video on how you look at the written reports that your student has submitted against the rubric. I'm going to take one strand here and show you how I approach this. All right, on the top of the slide, you can see that they have the action plan. This is actually the student's strand 2B. On the bottom, I've taken the task-specific clarification for this strand so that we can look at it together and kind of pick it apart and see what this student has and doesn't have, how they can improve. So it starts out by talking about, after determining my criterion of assessment, I formulated a plan of action which would allow for effective time management. When we look at the strand, it says presents a detailed and accurate plan and record of the development process of the project. So they're going to talk to us about the plan, and that's what they've introduced right here. They formulated a plan of action. They base their plan on the IB design cycle and see appendix. You're going to see this as you work through your student's report that they ask you to look at appendix. That doesn't mean it shouldn't be in the report, but that does mean that they are using that to give you the comprehensive evidence of what they are describing in the report. So what else did this student do? They're using the IB design cycle, divided the design process into inquiring and analyzing, developing ideas, creating the solution, and evaluating. And that is how this student approached their planning. Now, we asked our students to use tools like a Gantt chart, like a timeline, like a checklist, or like a calendar, and talk to us about those tools and how they impacted their plan and their project as they went through. So they should specifically name the tools. You should see those names. Some of those, like the Gantt chart, is a really easy way to show short and long-term planning broken down into logical steps because that's part of the Gantt chart. But they should also indicate that to you here about those steps and those decisions they made about those steps and how they use these tools in order to assist and keep them on task throughout the project. The other thing that they should be mentioning are specific dates. I don't really see that here in this student's portion. They do say they set aside 3 weeks. We would like to know specific dates, especially big benchmark goals that the student has as they move through this process. Those dates and mentioning those dates helps us understand a little bit and imagine that tool that they're using and how they made some of these decisions as they moved through this design process. Let's see. The next thing that some of my students had a difficult time understanding is that they also needed to include the record of the development process. It's clearly here in this strand, but they didn't understand what that was. The record of development process of the project is their process journal. Now, for this portion of the strand, you should understand exactly what that process journal looked like. Our kids are using often a combination of online, Google Docs, notebook, as well as maybe a physical journal, and they should explain that to you and talk about how that documentation process assisted them as they moved through this project. The other thing that we would like to know to get that 7-8 is about how they documented changes in that process journal. Now, the changes need to be justified. So here's where you might have an example of one of those changes and the decisions that they made in order to understand why they needed that change, as well as the outcome. So they should talk to you, or they should write about all of these things, the plan, the planning steps, how they had short and long-term goals, what kind of tools they used. They should mention deadlines. You should be able to understand again that what that process journal looked like for them and how they used it in order to stay on task with their plan and in order to record any changes that arose as they moved through this project from beginning to end. If they have revealed this in a limited way, where you have a limited understanding of their plan and record of the development process, then that'll be down there in the 1-2. Again, you're not giving your student a grade, but this will kind of allow you to see what they have and what they're missing and what they need in order to move up to get that higher grade, a 3-4. They need to have a better plan that's very clear, and they need to talk about the record of the development process. As you get all the way up to the 7-8, those are the details that have the examples and have the explanation of their plan and their record of the development process and their changes and so forth. So let me know if you have any questions. The last thing I need to let you know is about your feedback. So you can apply your feedback to your students' report in any manner that is easy for you. So what I would do is make a PDF of this and actually maybe electronically write as I went through the things that they needed to do for each of these strands to improve. Not only does that help me, because I remember as I go through, I can do one strand at a time against the rubric, and then that's easy for them to look at, and they can just go strand by strand down and apply and edit and refine that report based on your feedback. So it doesn't matter exactly. There's no form to fill out. There's no perfect way to do this feedback, but you do have to give them something that they can use and apply to help them write the best report that they are capable of. Thank you again for your time. Please email me if you have any questions. This is one strand that I looked through, and this is my process for helping the kids strand by strand against the rubric. Yours might be completely different. Do what works for you, but we certainly appreciate your time.